Hey everybody, it's your girl Queenie, and tonight I am super excited to have in the building Tanya of Just Say No to Narcs and Pink Girl Teaches. Beautiful Joy. She's coming, they're both coming off the West Coast, and they're joining me tonight so we can, of course, talk about love, life, and relationships, but more specifically, we're talking about toxic behaviors and healthy alternatives when dating. We'll be digging into the flags that many of us overlook. We'll be talking about what it looks like, what it feels like to be in a toxic relationship, and so much more. 2021 is upon us, and what better time to talk about love, life, and relationships? And when we're going into the new year and we're thinking of doing things differently, we're processing 2020, and yeah, want to make sure that we're doing better. We're showing up better next year than we did maybe 2020, than we did in this year. So bear with me. Soon they will be coming on. Until then, enjoy a little bit of music from a good friend of mine named D'Amico. He's an amazing artist, and he's local, and I think you will find his music pretty darn good. Um, we're going to be listening to Baby Don't Go. Yeah, enjoy. Don't go. I done made mistakes before. Promise I can make it right. I done stepped out on the love, and I pray for it every night. I know I can make a change. I just need you to believe me. Damn, I need you here with me. Don't know what I'll do if you leave me. Baby, don't go. I need you desperately. Need you more than anything. Cause you're my everything. Baby, don't go. Don't take your love from me. There ain't no substitute. So welcome back. Joining me tonight is Tanya of Just Say No to Narcs and the beautiful Joy of Pink Girl Teaches. Welcome, ladies, to the Relationship Zone.
Hello, Queenie. Thank you.
Hello.
Hey,
Thank you so much for having us.
absolutely. Listen, we have been trying to get this going for a little while.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you ladies for being patient with me. We had a scheduled recorded, and I was in the middle of a move, and they didn't set up my internet. I had all kind of drama going on. So I so appreciate you both being flexible with your schedule. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. Um, I want to give you both a chance to introduce yourself because I know that your brands, Just Say No to Narc and Pink Girl Teaches, are amazing and they're all over social media. And I love following you both, keeping up with your IG post. And but I know there's so much more that you both do. And so I would love an opportunity for the listeners to get a chance to know you before we get started in our conversation. So Tanya, could you please start?
Absolutely. Oh, I was going to put Joy on the spot. Look at you. I was going to say, let's let the fabulous Joy go first. So, Just Say No to Narc started, actually, it's just on a whim. I was like, I had gone through the court process with the ex sociopath that I dated.
Mhm.
And I was silent up until that point, and I was like, what can I do to have a voice? Because my voice had just sort of been taken over by the smear campaign and, other people who were within our circle. And so I started Just Say No to Narcs. I said, this is like a drug. And I thought of, I thought of when we had the DARE program in school. Just say
You
no,
too?
just say no to drugs.
Yeah.
So I said, well, we're just gonna say no to narcs. And
Yeah.
kind of what my thinking was at that time. And the whole purpose in the beginning was to just, of course, give myself a voice, take my power back. And I was just gonna tell my story, the way it happened to me. And I started there, and it has grown into something else to where, now I really enjoy coaching. I've really found I've noticed how God is able to use broken pieces
Mm.
to making something, and to making a masterpiece. And so from there, I just continue to build with the help of God and help other people. Hopefully my broken pieces can be a blessing, and maybe I can write a book or something in the
Yes,
future.
yes. Love that. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, Joy, come on, tell us, come through, come through.
Come through, here I come. So, Pink Girl Teaches. This is been a work in progress. It's started it quite a few years ago, going back to 2013. After just going through a process of, being able to finally realize who I am, I kind of was somebody who was always searching for my own identity that kind of been, taken away from me, or at least I thought it was just something that was lost in childhood. But turns out it was always part of me, and it was just walking into that. And so using, my experience as a survivor of childhood sexual assault, domestic violence, and, using all of that, everything that I went through, to help people gain an understanding about what they're going through, to be, to help them cross a bridge that many times you feel like you can't because you just don't know the way, and there's so much confusion. And so there she came, and I'm still going.
Girlfriend, that is amazing. I love that. So welcome, ladies. Tonight should be very, very good. I have two powerhouses here. You both talk a ton about abusive relationships, toxic behaviors, how not only it looks, but also how we show up in these relationships. So I want to just unpack that for a few minutes for the listeners. Um, you focus on narcissism a lot, right? So, what is your experience with narcissistic relationships? I don't know if it's intimate or if it's friendships or if it's family, but has been your overall experience with narcissism?
You want me- I'll start off if
Sure.
that's okay. Okay, so and Joy, you can tell me if this has been your experience too. What happened with the last relationship that I was in is that it sort of jolted me awake,
Mhm.
and to actually see that I had been surrounded by people like this for all of my life, actually. Um, it was so of course it was that relationship, that dating relationship, that helped me identify a name for what I had been experiencing for so many years. And as I continued studying, narcissistic behavior and cluster B personality disorders, i I realized that we have a long line of sociopaths and psychopaths within our family line, um, mostly with males, but then there are uh, there's the bipolar and the schizophrenia that also is coupled with a lot of the disorders that I noticed that, okay, we have a bunch of undiagnosed people. This is what I consider a generational curse within our family. And I've been dating people like this. I've had children with a person like this. I've had friends like this all of my life. I have been a magnet for these types of people. And so with this last relationship, I just, something in me, I was like, I can't do whatever this spirit is anymore. I can't do this. And I started researching. And I only started researching because that person actually, a year before breaking up with him, had mentioned that he was accused of being a narcissist, and I had no
Mm.
idea what that was, no idea. But that stuck in my mind at the end of our relationship, and that was when I started researching, and realizing that, yep, there's some codependency of some sorts, or just something within me that draws these people's some type of compassion and empathy. And I've got to learn how to exercise my power and set up my boundaries to keep them at bay.
Good for you. Good for you. Okay, Joy, what about you?
It's pretty much the same, you know. It's like you wonder, like, why am I always experiencing these type of relationships? And you know, because I was married to one, had no clue what I was dealing with, and going through the toxic cycle over and over again. You know, wash, rinse, repeat, and no understanding until I, you know, hit rock bottom within the marriage, and that fell apart. And you know, it had gotten to the point where there had been too many one more chances, and it was finally over. And so I took some time, you know, to focus on myself and start healing my old wounds and figuring out how, you know, how that will help me move forward. So I had a lot of downtime to work on myself. But it wasn't until I got into another relationship some years later, and it was like once that mask slipped and I saw, something's not right here. You know, this guy, don't understand what's going on, but I ended it immediately. And you know, I think, you know, that's in part because of the work I was able to do prior, because I know for a fact, knowing myself and my patterns and how I used to think, I would have stayed had I not done that initial work. But it was just also an indicator that more work needed to be done. And so I had no clue what I dealt with. I was just feeling this pain that was just like, wow. You know, it's not even like it's my heart that's broken, but it's more like it's my soul that's crying out
Mhm.
now. And so, you know, it's in that soul searching and crying out to God when, okay, study narcissism, and wow,
Wow.
this is what I'm dealing with. And so, you know, when you know and you can now step aside because now you're informed and you have information about what you're dealing with, you can step back and evaluate all relationships that surround you. And then it's like you just have an awakening and you can't unsee what you've seen. You just can't.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh, you ladies said a mouthful. Tanya, I want to go back to you. You know, I can totally relate to what you're saying when you have the family patterns that are just running in the background of your life. And then I personally believe that it conditions us to prepare for what's to come. And then when we run into another dysfunctional relationship, we have such a high tolerance that we accept these behaviors and we excuse the behaviors because we understand the behaviors.
Yeah.
So when you said that, it was just like, yes, that's exactly how I feel with my personal family experience. And Joy, of course, you said a mouthful as well, but I want to ask, how long did it take you to realize that second relationship? Did it take you to realize that you had seen this before and actually start doing something, like truly doing something about it? Like, how long was that experience for you?
It took, I mean, he was able to hold up a facade for pretty long. Now there were indicators along the way, but they were real small that, you know, you could just kind of overlook it and it was
Yeah,
easy to explain away or, you know, just excuse or dismiss, you know, so the smaller things. But once, you know, it was like a real glaring red flag, that was about 18 months in.
yeah,
And at that point it was just like, you know, and at that point really I think, you know, what he was doing was really trying to see just how much of his disrespect I would tolerate. I mean, I think it was really a test on me because apparently what I found out over time is that he had done this to other women and they were pretty much okay with it because they were still, you know, and I just was like, I'm out
yeah,
right then and there. It's over.
yeah. Oh, so I hope those that are listening that know that they're in something that's not quite right, because what you spoke about was your spirit being like broken. That's the break. It's not so much as just regular heartbreak. There's something that happens when that spirit breaks and you're still trying to hold on, or you think you're trying to heal because you've left it and you just can't get a grip. And sometimes people don't know, what it was or what it is that they are in. But when you're in a relationship with a narcissistic personality disordered person, it's different. It's a different kind of breakup, especially if you stayed for any period of time, hence why I asked how long it was for you, because I know the damage that comes with saying, I would say over 3 months. Saying over 3 months, you got some real recovery time ahead of you, right?
Mhm.
You really do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so Tanya, what were the flags that you accepted and overlooked in the intimate relationship?
Yes. Oh my. Well, I talk about how narcissists disrespect you from day one. Day one,
Yeah.
they're telling you a lie. So day one,
Day one, yes.
the abuse starts on day one. And
Mm.
so the first red flag that I noticed was our second day. And I take that back because when I went to write things out, the first red flag was the victimhood story that was shared in our very first connecting conversation. When he reconnected with me on Facebook, he was a victim of his ex-wife. That is
Yes.
a huge red flag because most people want to impress you. Normal people want to impress you. They don't want to bring their drama and baggage. They're
Right.
afraid that you might be turned off with sharing their drama and baggage. But no, not him. He immediately had to let me know that his ex-wife had taken full advantage of him and he's just trying to put things back together. And, it was always every other conversation about how she had done something horrible to him.
Mm.
That victimhood card, that victim story is your number one red flag in the very beginning to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And for those of us that move with empathy, we're suckers for it. We
Yes.
immediately empathize and we want to be
Yeah.
understanding and we want to be supportive and we want to allow for a very soft place for them to lay their heads.
Yep.
It's a setup.
It is. It is. It's a setup. And they want to use it more ways than one,
Yeah.
just to play on our empathy, but then they have a whole other person who they're trying to break down and tear down at the same time.
So
And
bizarre.
mhm,
That
mhm.
is so bizarre. So Joy, why don't you tell me the flags that you ignored early on?
One thing was how he forever talked about his exes. I mean, anybody who has nothing nice to say about a single person that he ever dated, I should have been saying to myself, well, that's going to be you one day.
Yes.
But he had already started this whole forever show with me. Like, I'm just so glad that we can have this future together. Now here my mind has gone down the road
Yeah.
when I should be focused on the right now. But like, especially when it came to the woman that had his child, I
Mm.
mean, like, he was comfortable using every name in the book except the one that she has. And that right there. But just like Tanya was talking about the victimhood card, even in talking about her, he would use that card and talk about how she's turned his daughter into something that he doesn't recognize, when the truth is, I've got to know the mom over, once the
Yeah.
relationship ended, she was one of the first people who reached out to me. She said, girl, I know exactly what you've been through, and this is what you're going to need to do to get better. And I was like,
Wow.
this is awkward, but she was really nice. And I mean, like, she was really great, and she was nothing at all, like he said. She was nothing. And I was able to now look, hindsight is 2020. I'm able to look and see how his daughter's characteristics were all from him. I don't know, maybe, with the mom, there may have been some stuff. I wasn't there for that. But you can really see his influence in
Mhm.
her. But, just the way he talks about the women in his life.
Wow.
And that was just, when somebody can disrespect a woman, you know, how do you entertain that?
Mhm.
Oh my goodness. Been there, done that. It always seems like we've dated or married the same person.
Yes.
Ooh,
Yes.
that's such a thought.
And you ladies are out there in Central Standard Time. I'm here on the East Coast. The likelihood of our paths having crossed the same person is slim, although we do know one mutual person together collectively. But we've never crossed paths. The likelihood of us dating the same person is so slim to none.
Yep.
But it sounds like we have all dated the same person.
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
ex stories is always a huge indicator for me. especially when there's not one good ex, and never do they take responsibility for playing any part in the destruction or the destroying or the breakdown of that relationship.
Yes. Yes.
Always a victim,
Hmm.
always the, someone that was against them, and they
Hmm.
did everything they could for that person, and it was never enough.
Yes.
Right.
And so, Joy, I was like, this one day is going to be me. When I heard all of that, I was like, this could be, all of his exes are crazy. And then I found myself being crazy too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm. Yeah.
And since you're talking, you
Crazy
were
moments.
extra crazy.
Let me tell you, I had a few crazy moments, but and it's funny, when I realized I was having these crazy moments, that's what actually pulled me in. I was like, you know what? I'm now being exactly how he made those exes.
Hmm.
So I pulled myself in. I refused to give him that I just said no more. But that was when I had to go no contact. So I want to talk a little bit about no contact, because again, I know the listeners are probably hearing something that sounds familiar, and they're probably wondering, like, how did they get out of it? That's the hardest part sometimes, is to get out of it, depending on how you prepare yourself.
Hmm.
So I personally had to go no contact, which was difficult, because I did no contact and I teeter tottered. So I would like to talk a little bit about no contact. And I want you to both, if you could, just explain a little bit about what no contact looks like and how you dealt with it. Or even if you, I mean, I'm sure you did have to enact some no contact rules. So tell me how you actually dealt with that and how you put it into play with leaving those relationships for yourself. Are
So
you?
no contact really is just no contact.
Mhm.
It's breaking off any type of communication that you have with a narcissist. What you want to do is create an environment that is going to allow you to heal. And so you've got to remove them from that environment. Otherwise, it just continues. So that means, cutting away from them, social media, blocking them, denying them access to you, because all it's going to take is a moment for them to come back and give you the sweet nothing, and they know what to say, because this is just part of what they do. They've been there, they've done that several times, and they know you, they know your weak spots, they know what to say to get to you. So being able to silence their voice so that you can refocus and realign with your own voice and get back in touch with you. Anytime that you're in a relationship with a narcissist, so much of your time, your energy, your effort, your focus is all on them, because that's what they need to survive. They need all of you. And so there's nothing left for you. So that no contact allows you now to start focusing back on them, on yourself. So deleting the phone, the text
Uh,
messages, getting rid of pictures, denying them access. Sometimes you really have to even evaluate any mutual friends, because those in turn will end up doing the narcissist bidding as his or her flying monkeys when they come back after you, and that will be whether they want to let you know what the narcissist is up to, let you know that they've moved on, and then your girlfriend is so much prettier than you, she's
uh-huh.
so much richer than you, she's just everything that you are not. And so, you want to shut those voices, because all it's going to do is pull you back into, into a state of depression, it'll pull you backwards, and it's going to hinder your healing. The no contact is not as a punishment, because what narcissists love to do is issue silent treatment.
Hmm.
And that's pretty much when they're exerting some type of control over you, or their perceived power over you. They'll put you on silent treatment and ignore you, not talk to you, and that's just to invoke a response or a reaction from you. But that's not what no contact is. No contact is taking responsibility for yourself and saying, I'm creating a boundary, because I now need to protect myself. And
Mm,
so don't feel bad about going no contact. During this time, the narcissist is going to be screaming and talking mess about you, but you ignore that. I mean, when I went no contact with this second person, I was kind of gangster about it, because I had information on what I was dealing with now.
yeah.
And so I was like, and the disrespect that came from this man was out of this world. And so I was thinking, okay, so you really thought that lowly of me, that you could do what you did, and I'm just gonna not show you who I am now, because it was too much. So I made sure that I followed the steps. I listened to the videos on YouTube. I watched and I paid attention. However, like all people, I made a mistake, or I had a moment of weakness, but mine was more so curiosity, because
Yeah.
I did break no contacts. I did break no contact because I wanted to see, is it really what these people are saying? Because this can't be right.
Right.
And what reaction, but I did. And everything, I mean, like, and I'm grateful that I did, because I think I was prepared to do that, mentally as well as emotionally, just the way my character is. So when I was able to see it for what it was, I said, you know what? This is a raggedy, dusty joker. And I was able to go and stay no contact permanently after that.
Ooh, raggedy, dusty joker. I love.
I love that.
Oh my
Oh,
goodness. Okay, okay, Tanya, let's do it. What you got?
all right. So no contact. Hey, I'm gonna give it to y'all real, okay? How I went through no contact. And so I didn't have the experience under my belt. I was watching the videos, but I was still at that point where I'm like, surely people can change. Things can, this can't, I
Yes.
can't accept this. Like
Right.
I was just, oh my gosh. So I was overwhelmed and distraught, and I had actually gone through a miscarriage after being forced to have sex. As my therapist said, I need to start saying the word rape after being raped. And so I was really devastated. And
Mhm.
so, although I would go back and forth with trying no contact, I would have moments where I would sit and, like you said, we have times where we feel like we are crazy because we're doing crazy things. We're not sleeping well, we're not thinking well, and so during one of those moments where I wasn't thinking clear, I remember sitting in the bathroom and calling him back to back to back and just leaving messages like, all the things that you have done, God's going to get you, you're a horrible person. Why can't you just tell the truth? All kinds of things that I was saying on the message. So I had a calendar on my phone where I would do the green check marks if I was able to do no contact for, that day or whatever. And, I could go 2 weeks and then I'll be back in that same angry mode because we go through that grieving process where it's just really up and down. It's a roller coaster of emotions. And, so when I, just wasn't strong enough, there I was calling again or sending some kind of message thinking that something's going to get through. This person's going to hear what they've done to me. When in fact, what people need to understand is that they do not care. And the more you do that, the more that fuels them, because the fuel for a narcissist is not us buying things for them and serving them and picking up behind them. It is the fear and the pain that a victim experiences. And so the more that you put that on display, the more they feel, that's their ego is
Yeah, yeah,
boosted even higher.
yeah.
So once I really got a hold of that truth and let it set in for me, and realizing that I was actually able to have a conversation with him, a quick conversation where I believe the new person um, was there present, but ask him, if did you ever care about me, like, why did you do these things and why are you lying? And he basically was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I couldn't even recognize him. He was a different person because they have to mirror the next person, so
Mhm.
they're no longer that person. They're not you anymore, they're someone else. And so he was a whole different person. I just couldn't recognize him. And so I didn't get to talk about the rape and things like that. I just let it go. It was that moment of closure, realizing, because he asked me, he said, what do you want, some type of closure or something? So they already know
Yeah.
what
Yeah,
you want to be going for.
they know. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I just said, you know what, this is not going to go anywhere. And I just need to let it go and try to find my way through life to heal over this. And I think it was at that point, it was within those few days that I went no contact. And other than them doing their normal thing where they're always reaching out to you once you do make that decision, they're
Yeah.
always trying to go through social media and all over the place to get in contact with you now. Didn't want anything to do with you when you showed attention and you were distraught. But once
Yeah.
you make that stealth decision to go no contact, man, I'm telling you, they come out of the woods. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, so eventually I got no contact, but in the beginning, honey, I was all over the place.
Yeah, yeah. It's you, I'm telling you, it's like we've dated the same person. Having that no contact is so, so important whenever we're trying to move forward. And Joy, you hit it, removing those pictures, taking all of that down, no access. I mean, you really have to build up all these walls to
Yeah.
protect yourself and really to protect them from you, because if you have access and I mean, I had to delete phone numbers, pictures, email addresses, everything, because as you both mentioned, like we will go back
Mhm.
for clarity, or we'll go back thinking something changed and maybe it can work out after all.
Mhm.
And I did not personally want it to work out at all. But I knew that there's that thing inside, that bond, that tie, that hug that will
Mhm.
pull me to send a text and just say, hey, just checking on you. How's your mom? How's your what?
Mhm.
And I did not want to do that. So I got rid of everything. I was
Mhm.
like, I don't want nothing. And I did, much like you ladies are suggesting, those friends, reassess them and say, listen, so I'm in the midst of this breakup and I don't want any parts of that person. So don't bring me any information. Don't tag me in any pictures. I mean, I was going through all of that to make sure that I was clear. I did not want to connect with him.
Yes.
And listen, wait a minute. Joy, Tanya, then my dad died.
Mm. Yeah.
So I fell for one moment. We had been finished, been over, but I fell for one moment just to inform him, because my dad loved him. So
Yeah.
just inform him. But when I tell you I knew I was different, I
Mhm.
didn't care if that joker showed up, called, and
Yeah.
let me know. I just did my due diligence, which was just give you the information. I don't care what you do with it. And
Mhm.
whenever he tried to entertain me with some conversation, I let him finish. I hung up that phone.
Yeah.
I got rid of my phone number, his number. Next time he reached out to me, I will be unavailable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's
Yeah.
when you really have
Yes.
not just fed up with the nonsense, but when you've grown past the nonsense.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, because these jokers, they'll have you tied up. And like you're saying, Tanya, the the fact that you want disclosure, you want to ask the question, but because they're entertaining someone else, they
Mhm.
play like you're the crazy person on the phone that just won't leave them alone.
Yep.
I don't know what you want.
Yep. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And when they get off the phone and have these conversations with themselves and with whoever will listen, and it's all a fabrication of the
Yeah.
Yeah.
truth.
It is. Mhm.
I'll say this to you, ladies, and I would love to know what you think. They have to be miserable people internally,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? Because
Yeah.
I mean, how can you? I love being authentic, even in my mess. Like I
Yeah.
love being
Me
authentic.
too.
I will hold steady and be authentic and be mad with my mess, but I'm still gonna hold steady and know that I've been authentic,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
So, what do y'all think that they feel internally? I mean, sometimes I'm like, they must convince themselves that it's the truth, or they know that it's not. I can't imagine how you feel.
I had an opportunity, I didn't mean to just jump in, but I had an opportunity to see my ex uh, in his misery. And it was because of the ex-wife. So people please understand that they're always that karma's built in for them. And
Mm-hmm.
so he couldn't control some type of situation with her. I knew enough then that this has to do with control. But I didn't have all the pieces to put together at that point. But I knew it was something to do with controlling her. And I was like, what's the issue? He's bouncing a ball. He smoked only when he was angry. So he was smoking a cigarette. And so he just couldn't get himself together. Um, and so I remember it's like, so, well, I don't understand what's the big deal. She's not bothering you really. So why are you
Mhm.
so upset? And she was every name in the book, like Joy said. He just couldn't figure out her real name, but he called her every other name. But
Mm-hmm.
he was just, I mean, he was livid. And I was like, come over, you can come on over to my house, and trying to be empathetic and like,
Yes.
I can you can calm down and we can talk about it or something like that. No, what is that gonna do? And so At that point I was like, oh, okay, well, I gotta go. Bye. But that, yeah, they are miserable. He was absolutely miserable because he was losing control over one. He definitely was trying to figure out how to control me over here. And so that's what it's like for them. He just had, I don't know exactly what was going on in his head, but I know that he was just in utter misery, and there was no fix and no answer for him.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I think I truly believe that they don't experience any form of peace whatsoever,
Mm,
because
mm.
they're at war really within themselves.
Yes.
It's fighting the false self
Mhm.
and trying to keep that image or that version of themselves out of sight. But you are who you are, and you're rotten. And it comes out in the
To the
way you
core.
treat people, in how you speak, in how
Mhm.
you carry yourself, your conduct, all of that, your no integrity. So all of that comes to the surface.
Mhm.
And they always have to have their head, they always have to be checking themselves, because how many people are you going to offend in one lifetime?
Mhm.
And you have to wonder about who's going to come back for me,
Mhm.
who's watching over my shoulder, or just never being at peace because you're so worried about what everybody else is thinking about you, how everybody else is living your life, I mean their lives, and how they have to maintain this facade of who they are and what they have, and all these different compartments that they have going on in their head, where they put all these different people. It's too much work. I'm tired just thinking about it. But
Mhm.
that's how they live, that's their exist. There's no peace. And if you don't have peace, I mean, like, the world can be, it's okay. Like, look, now we have COVID, right? Just an
Mhm.
example. And there's a lot of panic. There's, remember initially there was no toilet paper. You couldn't get any sanitizer. They said no mask, and there was no mask. Then you got to do this. And all of this confusion on the outside. But at least we can have a moment within ourselves and gather ourselves and still face everything that is happening around us. But when there's confusion out there and there's confusion within, what do you do?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm,
Mhm.
mm, mm, mm. You know what? I think you ladies hit it. I don't believe that they have any peace. I think that the taste of peace that they may experience is when they're in the idolization stage, in the love bomb stage of the person, or their supply, that target, that victim. When they are in that moment, it's like they're euphoric
Yeah.
because they're in this chase and they have this fantasy, in my experience, that this is going to be the one. But I think that when their true self begins to take over, there they come highly disappointed. And I think that's when we start seeing the mask slip off.
Mhm.
Because for me, the only time I remember seeing him extremely happy, pseudo happy, was when he was in pursuit of me.
Mhm.
And it was only in that action, because I'm sure he'd probably drive back down the street and be miserable but hopeful, right? Miserable
Mhm.
but hopeful, because if I really knew who he was, and so I think he just had to keep juggling the balls for a while. But I'm very analytical and I have high discernment. And I recall questioning just one thing. And that when I tell you that mask began to slip and all the happiness began to dwindle, so I do believe that they have this false sense of a pseudo happiness when they're in the beginning stages of pursuing you, because that's their energy. That's what's charging them. It's short lived. It's definitely short lived, because I do believe, as you're both saying and alluding to, there is this haunting that I think takes place in their life. They know something is going to happen, and usually it's them. They're the something that happens.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's
it
them.
catches up with them.
And I think that they do have that feeling like you experienced that, Joy and I. But then there's something that happens when these stronger people who were supplying them break away,
Mm.
and they go to what we talk about, call as the downgrade. And I don't think they ever get that feeling, that euphoric feeling with that person. I think
Right.
that person is a toxic replacement,
Mm,
um, someone that is sort of like a main flying monkey, if you would.
mm,
And if you look at them, you know, pictures, if you get to see pictures, because I got to see pictures of my ex, and he looked absolutely terrible, like he was aging overnight. And so
Yeah.
the reason I say that is because I looked like I was aging with him and he was getting younger because
Yes.
he was draining me. But with the new person who was really toxic, um, he looked like he was aging
Mm,
quickly. He gained a ton of weight
mm,
in a very short amount of time. Yeah, he wasn't shaving good. It was just, he looked terrible. And so I think that he never, and this was early on, in the beginnings, you know, the few months of their relationship. And I was like, what is taking place? I didn't know it all then at that moment, but now I know that sometimes they don't even get that moment, that euphoric moment with some people. Some people are a placeholder.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah. That
And
good
go
supply
into
though, that,
hiding.
yeah, but that good supply, when they got good, because listen, and I'm not trying to brag at all, but I know that I was good supply for him
Hmm.
because not only did I enable his foolish behavior.
Hmm.
I'll talk about it because I did. You know what I mean? I enabled his toxic behavior, um, and I kept going back
Hmm.
because I thought I could help him.
Yep.
So I was good supply.
Hmm.
And as you said earlier, not I mean, some strong people would just go, they'll roll out. Now I thought I was strong, but my empathy was overriding any of my strength.
Hmm.
My empathy became toxic and became my weakness. And
Hmm.
I'm sure that there are others. If you really break it down and think of it that way, you may see that that's how you're showing up. Those that are listening, how you're showing up as well in that relationship. I enabled his behavior 100%. He was an alcoholic. I accepted it, even though
Hmm.
I tried to get him help. And instead of me walking away, setting the boundary and saying,
Yeah.
get help or I'm gone. Instead, I said, get help or I'm gone. And I stayed. And then I said, okay, fine, I'll go to Al-Anon so I can get help to manage your alcoholism.
Hmm. Yeah.
I would, so for all those that are listening, don't ever make that mistake. I
Yes.
did that thinking this is what a family does.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is what a family does when you're operating in toxic behaviors.
Hmm. 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 Yeah.
Joy, what you got, honey? I see you. Your wheels are spinning.
I mean, like, it's crazy. Um, you know, the crazy thing is that we really think when we're in these relationships is that we can save them.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But the truth is they don't want to be saved.
Nope.
Otherwise, they would take that up upon themselves. They know that there's something wrong with them. They are fully aware of what they're doing. They know that they're evil. They know that they are hurting people, but they just don't care.
Mhm.
They actually enjoy it. And
Yes.
so, when you start going back and, oh, baby, please, just one more chance. Like, I'm really sorry. I'll do whatever you want. I won't wear that anymore. I won't hang out
Mm.
with that person anymore. I won't go to that place anymore. I won't do these things. I'll do everything.
Yeah.
They want you. That gives them so much supply. It gives them fuel. It makes them feel, powerful. It makes them feel like, you're
Yes.
demigods, and
Hmm.
that's what they want. And so, no, we can't help them. We can't. We're not Jesus Jr. It's not our assignment. It is not our call. We do not have the anointing for that.
Hmm.
And we have to accept it. And all of that energy that and the focus that we want to pour on them, it's time to pour on ourselves.
Hmm.
Because the longer we serve them and we are in service to them, when we're in relationships with these people, y'all, we are serving them.
Yeah.
And for what it's worth, it's almost like idolizing them,
Mhm.
Hmm.
because that is what they want.
Hmm. Hmm.
And we know that idolatry is a no-no. And so, look, and that's why these relationships are so beyond just your everyday toxic. They are terrible for your soul,
Yes.
Ooh.
because when you start to idolize a person who can't even take care of you, who can't even, and when I say take care of you, I know there are some wealthy narcissists and sociopaths and psychopaths. That's not what I mean. To take care of you when you're sick, to love you unconditionally, to support your dreams and your, because it just reminds them what they can do for themselves. And so they're not going to waste that time and energy and focus on you. But we want to love them and support their dreams and run behind them. No.
Mhm. My goodness.
Yes.
What's she telling you? You want to add something to that?
Oh, no, I mean, she summed it up because
Yeah.
it's true. It just had me thinking. I was thinking about what you were saying about I enabled his behavior, and I was like, did I enable some behavior? But of course I did. If I was there for over 3 months, as you said, I was enabling some type of behavior, period. And
Yeah.
so, although I did buck up against him a lot, he still took a lot away from me. He's
Yeah.
done a lot to me and caused a lot of pain in my life. But I did make sure to buck up against him when he started on the ex-wife to try and stand up somewhere in places where I figured I had a little bit of sense. And and of course he didn't like that because, so I had to be, either way it goes, I was going to be replaced. I ended up walking away from that relationship, but I'm sure he was working hard behind the scenes, like, she got to go.
Yeah.
And she ain't, no, she's not, especially the victim story just could not, he just could not
Yeah.
push that one over on me. I was just like you, Queenie, like, okay, it takes two people to destroy a relationship. So what was your part? I
Yes.
would ask him all the time, what was your part in it? Because
Mhm.
she didn't mess up a whole relationship in 16 years all by herself. And so anyway, but yeah, so we can't fix them, we can't help them because, like Joy said, they don't want to be helped. That's not what they're there for. And I believe that they are there to ruin you, to distract you from your purpose.
Mhm.
They're a distraction. That's
Yeah.
what I call a distraction. Like on Finding Nemo, when they say some fish are just delay fish. They are delay fish.
You ladies are right.
You have to break it down in those terms, like being able to bring Nemo in and,
Yeah.
use that as an analogy really does make it like everyday life. You
Yeah.
can relate to it because as crazy as it is, and it's like when you come out of that relationship, you're just like, wait a minute, what just happened to me? It's
Ooh,
like you've been in a
yeah.
whirlwind and everything around you is spinning, and suddenly it's like, what happened? And the dust is still going around, and you just like, and finally it just stops, and it's like, oh, okay, all
Mhm.
right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Let's talk about that for a minute because the recovery
Mm.
is difficult as well.
Yes.
It's a lot of building and rebuilding and finding yourself and figuring out, as you just said, Joy, what just happened.
Mhm.
I mean, I personally felt insane, even
Yeah.
though I knew I was very sane. Like I felt more insane by tolerating what I
Yes.
had just gone through. Like I'm thinking, what is? Listen, ladies, I work in the industry, and we didn't go into all that, but I work in the industry, right? So I'm around therapists, psychologists, family counseling, all types of people in this industry all day long.
Mhm.
Had it not been for one of my amazing friends to pull my card on how I was showing up in that relationship, I would have possibly stayed in it longer and became more damaged. But what I will say to you is, like Tanya, you had mentioned a codependency. My girlfriend brought that up to me. And this was all textbook stuff. It was all textbook. I just need to go back to my bookshelf and start researching. But the recovery was, I mean, I was so angry with myself
Yes.
more than anything. I was more angry with myself than I was with him, to be
Mhm.
quite honest with you,
Mhm.
because I felt that I knew better and
Yes.
still I allowed it. And so my recovery was like twofold. I was recovering from the damage and the time that I invested in this joker,
Mhm.
raggedy dusty. Is that what Joy said? Dusty, raggedy joker. And then I was recovering over the fact that I allowed myself to go through this, knowing better for
Mhm.
myself. Like, did I not love me? That's what I start asking myself. Did
Yes.
you not love you? Like, how did you get here? You weren't even, you didn't even want a man and you wound up with this foolishness. You know what I mean?
Mhm,
So
mhm.
how did you ladies process your recovery? Tanya, you can go.
Okay. Me to process my recovery. Woo, it took a lot. Um, I started with realizing, so I started with listening to YouTube videos. And learning more about narcissistic abuse, reading as many blogs as possible, and
Yeah.
then realizing that, okay, I'm not going to get out of this without therapy. I'm not going to make
Mhm.
it without therapy. And so I thank God that the first therapist that I accessed was actually an understanding person,
Mhm.
because therapy can be tricky. You need to find someone who understands narcissistic abuse, or who is willing to gain an understanding and walk through that journey with you. So I did find someone. And so starting there with therapy, I remember her saying that, I said, you got a little codependency. And I was like, I ain't no codependent, like, I'm strong. I'm a strong black woman. I'm educated. And, I
Yeah.
ain't got no codependency. I didn't enable nobody. So anyway, having this conversation tonight has reminded me that yes, you did, sis. Okay, just own it. And so and so I just remember starting there with and I think I shared this with Joy when I first met her, like, I ain't no codependent. And
I
so
remember.
Joy's just so poised and quiet. She's like, okay, all
Yeah.
right. And so but anyway, starting there was really the process. And before then, I didn't know what to do with the fact that I had been raped in my relationship. How can I say that out loud when I was there?
Mhm.
I was there. I laid in the bed. And having that discussion with my therapist and being able to really break that, like you said, forgiving yourself, because I was angry with myself for laying there, for not doing more for myself at that moment, and fighting. And so therapy helped me to start there. That was where I had to start. I had to start with that incident,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
then work through my life and looking back on other things and identifying close relationships within my family that had affected me and conditioned me to be in this type of relationship. Because one of the things my therapist said after hearing me was saying that this person reminds me of, and I'm going to say this on air, so hopefully she'll never see this video, but your mother.
Mhm.
You are looking for your mother in people. And that's where we started.
Yeah.
That's where we started. And that's what I'm processing still today. It is in, like you said, it is not a quick recovery.
Right.
Even though you can get to the point where you can talk to him. If I was to talk to my ex today, I would feel exactly how you felt, but I'm still recovering.
Of course, absolutely. Yeah. 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 Go ahead, Joy. And Tanya, I'm gonna come back to you about that mother statement. I got something to add to that.
So as far as recovery, mine, I have to say, kind of like it was a bit twofold, because first I was with the ex-husband, and I went back with him so many times.
Yeah.
I had no clue what I was dealing with whatsoever. And it was my own codependency, my needs, to be seen through, through him, or to, just get my needs met, that I was lacking, that I wasn't able to provide myself, which obviously he couldn't give me anyway. So it's just like, what are you doing anyhow? But, as crazy as that sounds, but, I had to go back and start working on the little me, on the little girl, and start healing her. And so that took a long time. It was a period of 5 years of just pouring into myself. And, I did go to therapy, I did get help, so that I could start my journey. But I still at this point didn't know that he was a narcissist, and there was additional layers that were going to be peeled in the process. Recovering from sexual assault is one thing, And it's like grief. There's different stages to grief, and you go through various emotions with each stage. We grieve a piece of ourselves that is taken from us. We're violated, and so there's that grieving process from what was taken from us. That yes, being able to say yes. And this is like, as a 4-year old, not knowing anything about what is happening, but that being taken from you, and was like a shedding of my identity. So it was just working back and getting to know myself. So once I had a little bit of understanding about, okay, this is who you are, and you are not the used goods that you've been calling yourselves all these years, that there's some value to you. I started being becoming better. But then I met him, and I'm going through everything. So once that ended, and I'm like, you should have been smarter. You know better than this. You ignored those signs, but you stayed. And so, you really are used goods, because you allowed this to happen. And this was, you did it this time. And so it wasn't until I knew what I was dealing with, because knowledge is so powerful,
Yeah.
because we blame ourselves. And I think it's okay for us to take responsibility for showing up in the relationship and for dismissing certain behaviors. But we can never, ever turn a blind eye to the fact that these people actually targeted us.
Yes.
We were nothing more than prey to them. They are predators who have been perfecting their craft for a lifetime. So, yeah, you're not going to walk into a relationship thinking, oh, yeah, I'm about to be with a predator. I'm about to be with somebody. We don't go into relationships with those type of lenses. We're going in with, we want to be loved. We want to love. We're looking at creating and experiencing memories and moments with somebody, building a life, sharing a life. That's what we're thinking of. So yeah, our defenses are not up.
Mhm.
So I think, a little grace to ourselves, and,
Yeah.
is important,
Mhm.
because it's nobody expects these things. Nobody anticipates that you're going to be violated at your highest self. And
Mhm.
so, I had to have that grace of myself. But once I had the information, I'm not going to say that it took away the pain, because the pain was there. And I don't believe, how people say time heals all pain. It doesn't, because I carried that pain from being assaulted as a child for 31 years. Time
Yeah.
did nothing for me at all. It didn't do anything. I was in pain for all those
Mhm.
years. But like, I was in pain with this, but I had information, and it's what I did with the time that
Yes.
made it productive for me,
Yes.
because I knew what I was dealing with. So I knew how to protect myself. I knew what to anticipate. I knew how to fight back. And so I just took all of that, and I said, I'm going to teach you a lesson. I'm going to show you. So, anytime he ever tried to, come back, hey, she has a whole new phone number now. So no, you can't reach her.
Yes.
No.
Yes, yes, yes. I so can relate, and thank you for sharing that. That thing that happens to us when we're children, we go through assaults. I too am a survivor of sexual assault, childhood sexual trauma, and sexual assault. And Joy, you're right. Time didn't heal it. What healed from what still is healing me is the fact that I was finally strong enough and courageous enough to use my voice.
Mhm.
And even with the abuse in the previous relationship that I tend to reference often as that was my worst experience, but um, in my silence, nothing was happening, nothing was changing. But when I began to use my voice, I found strength, and that is actually what helped me to heal
Mhm.
after I was out of the relationship. And I love the fact that you mentioned allowing for grace, right? I did give myself grace. First, I gave myself a reality check, like, girl, look. And once I got through that, I definitely extended grace to myself as I would extend to him or anyone else,
Yeah.
right? That showed up
Mhm.
reckless in my life. I'm still
Yeah.
going to be extending grace. So I gave that to myself. So I'm glad you actually brought that up.
Mhm.
Tanya, I wanted to piggyback off what you said when you spoke about what your therapist told you about your mother. I'm looking for your mother in these relationships. I had a very volatile relationship with my mother. It was short lived. she didn't raise me or any of those things. I've talked about this on previous podcasts. But one of my turning points, in addition to my therapist friend, um, was I experienced a moment where my ex narc reminded me of my mother. My mother was a narc, was a narcissist. She was very abusive and very toxic, and just poor behaviors. And people just, let her go on because she was she was my mother, right? So they gave her a pass all the time.
Yeah.
And we were a very religious family. And so they put the word on it and said, don't disrespect your mom, or, your days are going to be shortened. And so I lived under this fear
Yeah.
of speaking up and challenging her until I didn't, right? So for a long time I did. And I thought that I was just carrying the burden of me actually challenging her. And this is the reason why I'm being abused over and over again. So I was thinking all these things were just coming to pass. But I remember one moment standing in his dining room, and he was so disrespectful in this moment. And he walked around me, and I had this epiphany, or shall I say, it was like an out of body experience.
Mhm.
It was like literally what he said, his behavior, how I felt.
Mhm.
I felt like that 10-year-old, 11, 12-year-old child, and that
Yes.
he was my mother. And I verbally said to him, "You remind me of my mother."
Mm.
Like it hit me. It was just like, what is going on in this moment? And I was processing. He's walking around me talking this madness, and I'm processing what's happening. And I had this like out of body experience. And I remember saying it verbally. So my daughter was in the hospital at the time, and I was trying to rush back to get to her. Of course, he wants to act the fool while my daughter's in the hospital.
Yep.
And so I just said it to him. I was like, "You remind me of my mother." And I got in my car, and I was like, I promised myself I would never be in another relationship with anyone like my mother. And that was my first time ever saying that out loud. I'd never even had the experience to even say it until that moment. So when I heard you say that, I'm like, yep, your therapist was on it, because I don't think I was looking for my mother, but I was looking for a love that my mother didn't provide for me. And I was like, I know how a mom in my head should love. And I wanted that kind of love, that love like I have for my kids, unconditional, you know, I mean,
Yep.
they would probably have to pull a gun on me for me to turn my back on them kind of love. You know what I mean? Like I would tolerate it all the way up to here because they are my children. And that's what I wanted. That's what I thought love was, and that's what it should be. And so that's what I was seeking. And so maybe I was looking for that love of my mother, because he reminded me of the pain that my mother had given me. And I was like, no more. I mean, when I tell you that that was a game changer for me,
Mhm. Mhm.
because I wanted to, and I say this with anyone that's listening, I wanted to move with integrity and let my yeses be my yeses and my noes be my noes. And I promised myself that I would never be in a relationship with someone like a relationship that reminded me of my mother's relationship. And that's exactly what that had become, a very, very toxic, volatile relationship where I'm just accepting any words that he came out of his mouth with, regardless of how they made me feel.
Yes. 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 And
Yeah.
started feeling the same way towards him that you felt towards your mother when.
Oh my God.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What a wake up call.
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Goodness, ladies, what a wake up call. Okay. I want to turn the curve just a little bit. I want to talk just quickly because look, we got to be wrapping. This gets good. You can talk for
It's juicy.
hours
It's juicy.
when you start
Yep.
talking about this, because not, and it could be just me, but when I talk about it, it's like I have other epiphanies,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to share them, not just within myself, but to others, because when you're in these relationships, you're so foggy, you can
Yeah.
barely think,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yes.
like, what you know,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't even think. I could barely articulate
Yes.
my thoughts,
Yes.
because he made me, or the relationship made me question what I was going to say, what I just said, what I mean,
Yeah.
this is
And they're
no
really
ordinary
good at what they
relationship.
do. They
Say
are
it
good
again, Tanya.
at. I said they're so good at what. When we think about it now, they're really good at what they do to
I
make you.
mean, yeah, they're really good. They could be great salesmen.
Yeah.
But you got to consider they've been doing it forever.
forever. And it's been working.
Mhm.
Even when it's
Years.
not working, it's working.
Yes.
Yep.
Isn't that
Yep.
bizarre?
Mhm.
Even when the world is falling apart, it's still working in their mind. It's
Still
working.
Yep. Yep. Mhm.
You know?
It's
Yep.
crazy.
So,
So I want to just speak on the rehoovering, right? You know how they come back, the rehoovering and the re-idolization stage. Because again, I'm in several groups on Facebook, and I read a lot of the comments from mainly ladies in this group, and they're asking, well, in 3 years, do you think he's changed because he's back? And I've gotten to a point now where I'm tired of pulling my hair out, so I have to pass some of those because I understand that they're not where I am,
mhm.
and they don't have the information that I have,
Mhm.
right? But and I don't want to always come off so harsh and sarcastic.
Yeah. I know how you feel.
Yeah. Because sometimes, when you get to our stage, sometimes you just you've had enough because you've
Yeah.
seen it replay over and over again. And you like, sister girl, come on, and that's and that's not always the best way, because it takes time. Again, because of the foggy thoughts, I believe
Yes.
it's sometimes you just can't get it in there. But let's just talk about the rehoovering and the re-idolization. If you ladies could just give me an example or an experience, just so that the listeners can understand what that may look like in their life.
Oh gosh. You know,
Joy, how many do you have in the past month?
and before we go, you were mentioning how there are people in groups and how, it's been 3 years. Do you think that they've changed? It's really hard to come to terms. Like, really, it's very hard to come to terms with this relationship really didn't exist, because it
Mm,
never did. They didn't love you, they didn't care.
Mm.
They were probably with other people, they were with other people, and you were just nothing. You were just collateral damage, to the self ego or to
Yeah.
the false ego. And so, to think that I didn't matter, and those moments that we shared, when he opened up and he told me these things and painted the picture for our future, and we decided this is what we wanted, and it's hard. It
mm,
is so hard to wrap your mind around that. And their goal is to make us fall in love
mhm,
with them.
mhm,
So once we're in love and we're hooked, it's that addiction that, this abuse comes with, that makes it so hard for us to see or even accept that no, there is no return on this investment, that all that love that you gave is gone. Nothing is coming back. And no, they're not going to change. And so even when they come back and they start hovering you again, it's not because they had an epiphany and they're seeing, that you're the better choice for
Mhm.
them, or you're the one who can help them change. Again, they don't want to change.
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, yeah. They never wanted to change. They enjoy being the mess that they are and getting the response that they get.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
Tanya, you want to piggyback off of that?
Yes. So the rehoovering, I mean, I agree with everything that Joy just shared. And we have to remember that everything with narcissistic people is a transaction. I call it transaction ships, not relationships.
Yeah.
All about what they can get from you to take from someone else and to just keep it moving to the next person and sort of store you on a shelf. And so they will always, as long as we allow them to, they will always come back.
Mhm.
Even when that door is closed, I've heard so many stories of them coming back 20 years later,
Ooh,
still trying it and telling that person, I've been keeping track of you all this time,
yeah.
and they wait for that person to have a moment where the lady that who shared this story, her husband had actually passed. She had actually married a great man, was married to him for about 20 years, and then he passed. And then, but she said two narcs that she hadn't seen in over 20 years popped up at the same time, asking her how, letting her know how they're doing, not asking once, how was your husband? The same old stuff 20 years later. And like you said, you were equipped with knowledge now. And so she knew exactly how to respond, she knew exactly what to do. But they were no different. She's the same selfish behavior. They were both married.
Yes.
And so it's just they are, when I say this to people, once a narcissist, always a narcissist. They're going to repeat the same patterns, the same behavior over and over again. And it comes to the point, Queenie, to where it's like how you said, I reached out to him. It was no biggie for me to say, hey, my dad has passed, and just, I'm doing the right human thing, and it just really gets to that point with them, to where it's really no never mind with whatever they have going for you, that you can deal with that, because they're always going to pop back up in your life. Always. And my recent experience was, my ex had been lurking about, and they come up with these fake names, false social media names, and try to ask you questions, but say things to let you know it's them.
Yeah.
Trying to make you feel like you're crazy. And then, you get to a point where you just you just delete and block, whatever that is. Delete and block, like, whatever. I don't have time for it. But you know who it is, and the numbers and the texting, and, the people who randomly pop up who you haven't seen in over a year, but they know them. Kind of, that all of that takes place, and it will go on, and you only really notice it if you care to notice it. Eventually, you just don't care at all. And so, my ex recently popped up. I had my first live on TikTok. I had announced on YouTube that I was going over to TikTok to go live for the first time. And guess who was the first person to pop up? Yes. The first person. Hello, how are you doing? So I text Joy. I couldn't text fast enough. Joy, get over here in this chat with me real quick. I'm the only one in here with this dude by myself.
But that's what they do, and they don't care about anybody.
They don't.
These narcs, they don't care about their children. You have children like me with a narcissist, and they don't care. It purposely ignores birthdays and holidays, and then sends a bogus email about my account was fraudulent activity on my account, so I couldn't call the kids to say happy birthday. A month later, now after a month, I mean, this is how they are. But it's never about anybody but themselves. Their goal is to inflict as much pain as possible. And so raising children, in that environment where, this person is always going to be who they're going to be. And they will never accept any of the children's accomplishments for what they are. It will always be something like, well, when I was in school, or I was a better football player, you see. And so it's really tricky. But what's one of the most disappointing things about raising children with them is that when they send these random messages, part of it may be to hurt, maybe to, I was going to say to hurt the children, but if their goal is to hurt their children, their ultimate goal is to hurt you. But whenever you find them, like, with this niceness, and I want to see it's not even that they want to see the kids, it's they want to get back with you. And it's never about the children.
Never.
And it's always, it's always going to be about supply. So, that something's going on with that new supply. And and this is just how it manifests. It's never about anybody else but them and their needs.
Yes. You ladies, I agree with you. I also will add that I think for some it's, they need to validate their feelings of being a victim. And so they get an opportunity to have access to you, and before you know it, they spend the entire conversation on how they were victimized in the relationship. I've seen that show up several times. I think, sometimes attempt to make you feel guilty, so you can own that the reason why the relationship ended is because of, and it has nothing to do with them. So they show up looking like the victim over and over and over again, to include the children and all those, these, any other jobs, anything, anything. Someone asked me not long ago, because this person was rehoovering them, and I said, I think he just wants access to you, because if you give the standard that you are now living by, he's never going to even attempt to live up to that. Like, because he knows that you know who he is. He just wants the same old access to you. But now that you've grown past that stage in your life, and you say, well, this is, if you come back in my life, this is exactly where you have to be. They're not, he's not even going to attempt to be that for you. He just wants access. And I promise you, she met him with that conversation, and he was trying to win her over until she gave him this new standard of living. I call it this SOP, the standard operating procedures that she's now living by. And he created an argument so that they basically just fell right back into the space of no contact. And I told her, I said, that's a good way to get rid of him. Now,
Yeah.
now you get rid of him on your terms,
Mhm.
and don't go back.
That part.
And she was like, Queenie, as soon as I told him like the things I need and I expect him to meet these needs and blah blah blah, he was talking about he don't do well with ultimatums, and and I said, no, I said, I said, what he's really saying to you is that he's not willing to do that period. That's because he never
Yep.
wanted to.
You had her mess up homeboy's wiring.
Yeah, that he was never going to show up and be fully committed in this, because they had already done that. They've been on the cycle for a long time.
Yes.
But now I think she's finally in a place where she's done.
Mhm.
And she just did not know how to handle the rehoovering and the idolization. I said, you give him your standard now,
Yep.
and see if he's just all you gotta do is tell him and
Yep.
see how he responds.
Yes.
Oh, he was
Great
so
advice.
livid with her.
Yes.
So livid. I mean, I
He's
sit and
probably like, where's Queenie? Where is she?
You've been doing too much talking.
sit back and I just bloated in it. I was like, sometimes you got to stick it to the man. So, you know, uh, but I'm always rooting for people if they can make their relationship work. But we all know that when it's toxic, and when
Yes.
it's this type of toxicity, it just won't work. It will
No.
not work with you still being a whole person.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It just won't. So, lastly, ladies, because again, by the time this airs, it would be 2021. God knows, hopefully, we have all made it out of 2020 unscathed. But I want you to, if you can, or if you will, leave some dating advice. When we get a new year, we start having this new outlook on life, and especially if we're single, we're like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And some of us may try online dating. Some of us, I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic, so I can't even say we're just going to go out, network, and meet people. So we have found different ways of meeting people that
Yes.
has now become our norm. So online dating is kind of where a lot of us are winding up, right? So 2021 is upon us. Give some dating advice for the single ladies that are listening.
Ooh, I'll let Joy go first. She's
Okay.
the dating expert.
Oh,
Oh, really?
let's get it.
What I would say is that as you embark on this new year, be successfully single.
Mm,
And what I mean is be successfully you. You don't need a partner to complete you. You're already complete as you are. Nobody goes to the mall to buy half a shoe. They buy a whole shoe. So you're not putting two parts of a shoe together to make a whole shoe. You are complete. And part of being successfully single is embracing that completeness and being happy in your singleness, because if you're not happy single, you won't be happy in a relationship. If you're not happy unmarried, you won't be happy married. And so you've really got to work on really making peace within yourself about everything that's ever happened to you, everything that you are now, and everything that you aspire to be. Get in touch with you, put you back in focus, be fully aware of what your likes and your dislikes are and what your boundaries are, and protect them. The onus when it comes to our boundaries is always on ourselves. And so, make sure that you don't just set them, but enforce them. And don't be afraid to walk away, because just because one person walked away or was not good enough, or you had to cut them off, it doesn't mean that there's nobody else. There's like 7.5 billion people on this earth.
Mhm.
There's more than one person for you. I don't believe in the one, because there's several people who can be good partners for you,
Yeah.
but you've got to be successfully yourself first. Being successfully single, being happy, being whole, being at peace.
Mhm.
And just working on the things that you have to. It doesn't mean that you have to be this picture of perfection when he comes along, but at least be aware of what you're working on and be taking those steps to get there, because you don't want somebody to now come and say, well, I'm going to finish the work, because that's your journey, that's your story, that's who you are, and all of that is tied into your purpose and the vision for your life. And so, you have to take ownership and responsibility of that part of you.
Mhm.
Mm, girl, that's a word. That's a
It is.
word. I wish I could be snapping my fingers. That's a word, honey. That's a word.
Be
All right,
successful.
Tanya, go, go, go.
All right. So I think I love the advice that you gave to your friend to tell him what it is that you want. Just be straight up. And I think that especially at my age of 41, in our age group, it's we're we don't have we played around in our 20s, we
Yeah.
kind of
Mhm.
gave it a chance and here and there, but we're past that. We are career women, goal oriented, educated, and so I'm just going to be straight up. This is what I want. This is what I'm
Mhm.
looking for. And I think that is so important. It's something that we've been afraid to do because we've been conditioned to think that, oh, a man will run off if you, like he said, give them ultimatums. Well, if you feel like what I want is an ultimatum when I'm asking you what it is you're looking for as well, then you're not my person,
Mhm.
period. And there's no need for us to move past this point. I'm not saying give it to me right now, but I just want to be straight up to you. This is what I'm looking for. I'm not looking to play any games, and I'm not looking to be used. I'm not looking to be your mama. I don't want you to be my daddy, that kind of thing. And
Yes.
so just have some straightforward, honest conversations. I can't move forward with anyone who just can't be straight up and honest. Let's have some
Mhm.
raw conversations in the very beginning, because the red flags will pop up immediately
Yeah.
if you're dealing with people who are unsafe for you.
Mm, 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 mm. Oh, girl, look, you said a word. If you're dealing with people who are unsafe for you,
Mhm.
I really hope that sinks in to those that are
Mhm.
listening,
Yeah.
because you are right. We can feel it. We feel it when they're unsafe
Mhm.
because we feel
Yes.
unsafe.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that spoke to me, honey. So thank you very much.
Yep. That's a thank to I want to say thanks to Joy because she has us reading a book called Safe People. The Safe People,
Oh,
Joy. Right? Yeah. And so
Yeah, safe
yes,
people.
Safe People. And so yes, great book. There
safe
you go.
people. Okay, I'm gonna have to pick that up. Safe people. All
Mhm.
right, ladies. I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. We are going to wrap this up because we could go on and on and on. So with that being said, you have to come back.
Absolutely. I
There's
enjoyed this.
so much more to talk about. I want to welcome you both back later on in 2021.
Yeah.
And if you could just share your social media handles, because I am certain that after this podcast, people are going to want to know who these ladies are. So, Joy, could you share your social media podcasts or whatever it is you have out there? And same thing with you, Tanya.
Absolutely.
Before I do that, thank you so much for having us tonight. It's been an awesome time being able to talk about this, and also just for having this conversation, because the more it goes around, the more people that share this message, the more people can be informed. Because I believe it happens at a greater rate, or, yeah, at a greater level than we are aware of. And
Mhm.
so it's going to take everybody using their voice in one way or another to help somebody hear the message so they know, child, you're not crazy. It's really them. and be able to get some understanding so that they can come away from that. So thank you very much. And social media, it's Pink Girl Teaches.
All the way around.
Pink Girl Teaches. You're on, I'm sure you're on Twitter, IG. Are you on TikTok as
Everywhere.
well?
Pink Girl Teaches.
All right, y'all heard that. So Tanya, tell us how we can find you.
And I'm Just Say No to Narcs, YouTube and Instagram, and I'm also on TikTok. Pink Girl
And
Teachers is on TikTok, you guys. So and she has some really great TikToks.
Oh
And
my
so
God.
same thing on there for TikTok and Twitter and Facebook. So it's all Just Say No to Narcs. And yes, that's where you can find
Okay.
me.
All right. And one last question. Do either of you have like a coaching platform? I mean, do you take on clients? Can anyone access you if they just need that service? Please share.
we actually both do coaching.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. So, you can reach out to us, and we do have different coaching packages
Yeah.
that we offer. We're also hosting a self-love retreat
Nice.
Yes, let's put that out there.
in
Yes.
March.
When is that? When is it?
It's in March, the
Okay.
19th through the 21st in
Okay.
Houston.
Okay.
Mhm.
So this is a live, social distanced.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
mean, I guess we will probably have to still be social distancing
We'll
it.
be socially distanced.
Okay.
Mhm. Yes.
So, and this can be found on the, because I'm asking because, I mean, I could use to get away. I'm just saying.
Hey, it's gonna be great. And the good thing about it's gonna be outdoors, a lot of outdoors activities, so we can really keep, some good
Yeah.
distance.
Yeah.
And it's just an opportunities for us to shed some things and then realize some things that we need to maybe do for ourselves and just really take that time to get away. So we'll,
Wonderful.
we'll have some discussions about what does it look like to love yourself? We'll
Love
have those
it.
Yeah.
discussions and then practice it. You know,
Mhm.
we're not just going to talk about it. We're going to practice it while we're there.
I love it. So if you could just drop that in my DM, I'll make sure that we share that out on my page, especially when this podcast drops and out on YouTube. I want to make sure people can access it because I believe that what you ladies are doing is real work, soul work, and we need that, especially as it relates to these relationships and our healing. Those childhood traumas haunts us, and they show up in our adult life in these adult relationships, and I think that we need all the help that we can get, the help that we did not get when we were young. It just didn't have access to it, or we just didn't acknowledge it. We did not understand what we were going through. I think sometimes the trauma, we don't even see it as trauma. We don't see the behavior as toxic until we start having these conversations. So you ladies are really doing soul work, and I can appreciate you all. So ladies, without further ado, I just want to say again, thank you so much for stopping by the Relationship Zone. It has been such an amazing, empowering conversation,
Yes.
and you are welcome back anytime to the Relationship Zone.
Thank you so much, Queenie.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies. Bye. Oh my goodness. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I had such a good time listening and talking with the ladies. Oh my goodness. I hope you all got something from this discussion tonight. Just Say No to Narcs, Pink Girl Teaches, Tanya and Joy. You are both huge charms, and I love engaging with you. And you're talking with myself and talking to the viewers and the listeners about these toxic relationships and what narcissistic, relationships kind of show up as, what they look like. So thank you so much, ladies, for stopping by. To the listeners, if you're in a relationship, and I, oftentimes talk about this, but if you're in a relationship and you know it's unhealthy, or if you feel like it's unhealthy, or the flags are waving and the signs, you just keep having to overlook behavior over and over again, no matter what, and it just doesn't change, you may want to just reevaluate some things. I'm not here to tell you to run and leave, but I am saying reevaluate it and see if it's even worth it. If you feel foggy, you feel like you're losing yourself, check out some of the videos out there on narcissism and be careful even with the people that you decide to watch and you decide to follow. I mean, these two ladies, of course, I definitely say, find them and follow them and There's another friend of mine out there named Quinn, who is with ASSC Group. I think that's right. But you can just Google him. You can actually find him on my page. So if you look on my YouTube page, you'll see an interview I conducted with Quinn, and then you can follow him from there. But check him out if you feel like this might be your story. If some of these things sound very familiar to you, then please check him out and get the help that you need. And if you're looking for a spiritual guide, I would suggest to look up R.C. Blake's, because he speaks a lot about narcissism and toxic relationships and how we show up and what it looks like. So these are just some names I'm dropping. I'm not paid by anybody, but I do know that the people I'm talking to you about are there to help you. They're not there to take advantage of you. They're there to actually help and assist you. So please check them out. And we're going to close out. And Happy New Year, Happy 2021. In the background, you may hear D'Amico playing. He's our outro. He's one of our guests, musical artists. His information will also be in the comments section or in my bio as well. So thanks a lot, guys. Until next time, remember, iron sharpens iron. It's your girl Queenie from the Relationship Zone. Peace and love.